Welcome everyone to Wednesday's Live, and happy to be back with all of you. Today I wanted to use this lovely little scene of some windows and balconies and awnings in Venice. Hi James. And along the Riva degli Schiavoni, not too far from St. Mark's Square. But it's a great subject, I think, to review the whole topic of washes, which is usually the first stage that we do in a watercolor. It's where you get you get all your lighter tones in, your lighter colors. But maybe more importantly, it's where you sort of kill the whiteness of the page and get the image established as quickly as you can, as opposed to painting this balcony railing and that set of flowers and these hats and that window, rather than painting everything separately. So, yeah, a lot of people need to hear this topic because it's not like painting a oil or an acrylic where you can do that, paint things separately. We need to get things established so that we can judge our values and get all that stuff correct. So, the first thing I'm going to do is actually do the drawing and talk about the composition. When you get a situation with a lot of windows, which are generally symmetrical in buildings, hi Patty, you want to do something to create a bit of asymmetry so it just doesn't become a static grid-like pattern. So in this situation, we have more spacing here than we have here. We have these lovely cast shadows breaking that up. That's narrow, that's wider still. This is quite narrow. So also we have that's long, that's short. Things like that help us create a more dynamic kind of composition, as opposed to if all the windows were in nice, neat rows, as they sometimes will be. So we have to look for the ways to break these things up. Hi, Michael. Hi, Kathy. So, 1, 2, I'm going to say it's about a quarter. And the other thing is there's an interesting pitch to the top of these. You notice it's not quite parallel. It goes like that. And this is pitching a little bit this way, down. It's not parallel to the bottom of the thing. So that's kind of helpful. So at about quarter, I'm going to, what's this? And then this is going to be a narrow bit down here. And what's that? So, got that established. Up here, this is not half, so what's left over here, this is not quite halfway, this is a little less than halfway. So there's that, half, a little less. And it's, well, maybe more or less level. And I'm doing this lightly because a lot of this stuff is, it's not a object, it's kind of wires, and I think that's probably their cable TV or their internet there. So then at the top, here's that line pitching this way for the tops of the windows. Now I am actually going to use a ruler because this is a mechanical line and I need that to be relatively straight. This one perhaps not so much because that's a canvas awning and it could be wobbly, sometimes will be. That's not a line. This is, it's Venice. Hi Martha. The buildings are a little bit wonky because sitting on stucco and stone buildings, sitting on wooden posts driven into the mud. So the next thing I need to find out is, where are these windows? This is a little bit past halfway, so I'm going to draw a line there, and this is what, 1, 2, 3, a little more than a quarter, but not quite a third. So it's very important to establish these spacings early on. And hello. My cats are marked safe too. So and then this set of windows here is going to come about there. So this is the area that they sit in. That's not the windows per se. You probably can't see much of this at all. I'm going to start firming it up pretty much now. So if that's the width of that window, it has to be more or less the same width for this one. So let's get that narrow section in between there, which happily corresponds to where that little gap in the awnings is, which spreads out like so and helps us see that these are at an angle like so. All right, now we've got these balconies. Up here, the important balcony is, it arches out a little bit. So I'm going to put a little bit, I'm going to figure out how high above that it is. About so. Ah, look at that. That one's, I love the asymmetry of this because that is higher than that. Oh my goodness. It's the sort of thing you might have to try and do on a more symmetrically arranged subject, but it's just the sort of thing that we need to do on those. Here it's done for us, so happy days. Now there's a little bit of a what would you call that under there? A slight corbel with a thing that comes out. Here too. Most of that's going to happen when we paint. Here we've got a slightly arched out window. The railings are dark, so we get away with not having to paint those or draw them in because we're going to be able to so the balconies and the little overhangs, they kind of and if I hand draw these rather than ruler draw them, they'll come out a little bit wonky and that'll look Venice-like, very old. You don't want Venice to look like new construction. Same thing here. A less they have a wee bit of a balcony too. That, to make it look like it's coming out like that, we draw it like so. Now another thing that I love, we've got a half a shutter coming out of this one. That makes that different than the others. Just the sort of thing you'd want to be looking for or putting in if it wasn't there. Then it's got this lovely window shade with stripes. That's at a bit of an angle, and some curtains, and none of the other windows have that. Again, just the sort of thing I might put in, even if it wasn't that way. This window, same deal. But we have the flower boxes, which is a lovely yet one more thing to make it a bit more irregular. So I'm going to put that at about this area. Same here. Same here. And I'm going to put a few more flowers in it to break up this big expanse of now, there's a gap in here. All right, what do I want to erase? What do I want to keep? Get rid of some construction lines. Hi, Cindy. I'm going to take out the middle of the flower boxes there because I want to put them in. Oh, I guess I don't need that. And well, I sort of do need this, but I want that to happen by itself when I paint it. So, all right, oops, I see a thing. Okay, this is a continuous balcony. And, well, we don't really need to erase the inside of the shutter, but there it is. Okay, so now we're going to start talking about our washes. We've got a lovely ochre yellow. It was white with, I don't know, off-white with very warm light. And I'm going to use, as I do this particular image, I'm going to try to use as many easy lifting colors as I can possibly come up with. So the easy lifting colors are like yellow ochre, raw umber, burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, and viridian. The ones that don't lift so well are brighter yellows. I don't really have any bright yellows on here. Any kind of crimson red, like alizarin or quinacridone, or this very floral mix. Phthalo blue, Prussian blue, that won't lift. The lilac will, but we won't be using any lilac today, I don't think. Viridian is a color that sort of dries hard and funky on the palette, but it's a wonderful color, so I am going to put it out fresh. Some colors are just need that sort of thing. Ultramarine, that's good. Okay, so our first big wash, I'm going to use a biggish brush. It's a squirrel mop. Get it very wet, soaked through. And washes are always runny mixes of paint. In other words, more water than paint. So yellow ochre is a good lifter, and that's going to let me do something to make this easier. You notice we've got some strong whites in the woodwork on the windows. I'm going to try to miss them as I put this yellow ochre on, but if I don't, I'll be able to lift it out such that it looks like I've done that. So get a good bit of it on here because we need to cover some real estate. And now I need to get some water to make that a very runny, pale mix. Give it a tester. Let's see. So that's going to look pretty much like it. Oh, there comes a little bit of junk out of the corner. That'll just make it look more Venetian. So what I'm going to do is anything that's darker, I don't have to worry about it. The shadows, cast shadows are darker. The inside the windows, they're darker, but I can miss them. I don't want to hit down here because I want that to be the Viridian. So let's just get a good bead going across the top here. Runny paint so you can get a bead going. I'm just going to run this down to here. I'm going to run it down to here, stopping at the and then I'm going to hit the big areas, keep the bead going. That bead waits for us when we paint around these little fussy bits. Now let's get a little bit of some of that dirt out of the corner of the palette so that this yellow is not the same all the way down. I can hit the shutter because, let's even lighten it a bit, put some water in there. So if it gets mottled a little bit, this is a good one to try out if you wanted to get your beaded wash creds going. Because you don't have to get it perfect. In fact, you don't want it perfect. Let's get a little raw umber in there. We're going to talk about raw umber versus yellows. Mop up that extra. I'm going to rinse, squeeze, and evacuate that bit there. Rinse, squeeze, and evacuate. It's called a mop brush because you load it up just like the old string mops with paint, but when you want to pick up the water, like you were mopping a dirty floor, then you wring it out. So, let's just get a little bit more right along here. So I think I managed to miss that pretty well. Over here in this puddle, again, a runny mix of Viridian, but a little more pigment than we had in the yellow ochre mix. That was quite a bit of water in that. Again, we'll do a tester. I'm going to put a wee bit of ultramarine in it. This is a very bluish green down here. Almost a teal. Let's see what we got. Okay, that looks about right. Now, again, we don't want to do that. Again, anything that's darker like that or down under here, I'm going to skip a few lights. So, oh, I've got people messaging me. Here we go. I'm going to put a little more blue in it, maybe even a little bit of alizarin. And then I'm going to try to, here and there, miss some lights. Where do I want to space them? Irregularly. And some of them big, some of them small. A little bit of purple in here isn't going to hurt anything because it's a wonderful complement for all those yellows. Now this we want to let dry. Sherry, hello. Things are going to get darker, things are going to get different colors, but all of this is, notice we've got a kind of a big pattern in here already. We're starting to get our image. We've killed most of the whites except the ones we want left over. We could have painted through that with yellow ochre, but in the middle of the window, but why? Oops, I forgot to mute. All liftable colors. Okay, now, Viridian lifts, yellow ochre lifts. Just to illustrate that, I'm going to get a stiff brush and some clear water, this little stiff nylon brush, and that little bit there, I'm going to lift a bit of that out. You dampen it and you scrub it, and then once we get the other stuff in, it almost won't show. We could also do the same effect to get these little stripes. And I like them because they help us establish the fact that this awning is tilting out. So notice that they obey laws of perspective here. So they get further away they get, the more acute the angle. And on that long one, we can put a little bit of sag to indicate that this is canvas and it's not something stiff and solid. Where do we want to go next? Well, we want to go to some of our medium value colors. I'm going to maybe eliminate some of the white or the pencil marks in the whites. Some of these whites you will notice also are in shadow. And gee whiz, look at that. I could have, or I should have, gotten underneath that one. So let's get a little bit of yellow ochre. Well, what the heck, it doesn't have to be perfect because there's going to be a shadow under there anyway. All right. Hi, Brent. Now, one thing I could do, I could make a lighter bluish, just using some runny, put some more water in that and some ultramarine blue and make parts of that not so bright white because it is under an awning. So even if it's a white thing, it's not going to be quite white. It's going to be a light blue or a light gray, something like that. Maybe we'll even throw in some color later. And portions of that's going to get a lot darker. So I'm going to get a stiffer haired brush that's about the same size as the squirrel mop. I'm getting the Oriental brush. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to make the paler blue grays in the woodwork, the white woodwork. So I'm going to use the Viridian ultramarine mix, put a little more ultramarine in, and a little bit of alizarin, or in this case quinacridone, to get a, well, that's too much, isn't it? I need this to be a pale blue. So a little more blue, but not baby blue. That's why the alizarin and the Viridian. Okay, do a tester. So it's a wee bit darker than that, but we'll see. So the top of this one, get some of those pencil lines out. I do want a kind of a clean white surface. I'm going to look at the windows individually, and I'm going to say, where are they in shadow, and what part of them is white? So it looks like most of the top here is in shadow, except for the right side that's catching a little bit of light. And then it comes down. We're not talking about well, we are talking about cast shadows. And just a wee bit under here, and this one comes down a bit further. On this side of it, the balcony, it's in shadow. And light's coming in from stage right. Maybe a little bit of that there. Keeping with this. How about this one? Same thing, almost all of the top in that. Shadow coming down to about there. A little bit there. This side of the balcony. And underneath. I'm going to get to the next thing I'm going to get is our flowers. This, all of the top of this one, and again, if I get down, partially down here, partially down there, all across here to about there. Same thing with this one. That one almost all the way down. This one definitely all the way down. And most of that little balcony area in shadow. Now, it doesn't look like much now, but it's gonna. Hi, Christine. So it looks like we get a bit of a on that too. This one again, the whole shooting match up here, except for a white side on the right. Boy, everything in there. So I really need a lot on this one. Everything in here. I can get that shutter too. Except when I get down here to the balcony, I have to do some little striated things to indicate shadow cast shadows from the railing. And then on this one, some light is getting to one side of this, comes down to about there. Again, half of this, and the underneath. Pretty much all inside of here, but that's going to get darker again. Well, yeah, we don't have to do that because there's others. Let's go on to our flowers. I'm going to use this lovely floral pink. And I'm going to make the whole, I'm going to overshoot because it's a lot of darks are going to cut in over this, and it's going to give us the effect of a floral arrangement. We're going to let that dry. Okay. Now where can we go while that's drying? Well, we could get some more Viridian and some more ultramarine blue to make a darker version of it. There's the original. And we could sort of, well, let's make it a little lighter than that. Create some modulation in the green here and suggest maybe some wrinkles in it. I'm going to soften that a bit. Again, the thing I want to do is make sure I don't make it all similar. And if I want to soften those edges, I can rinse, squeeze, and just dampen them. That'll help there. Let's start getting into our windows then. Is that drying? Yeah, I'm going to further remove pencil lines. So these are all relatively runny mixes of paint. We're just adding a little bit more pigment and a little bit more pigment. And then it's when we get into the darks that things start happening. So I'm going to start at the bottom here. Now a good go-to dark that I can lift. Maybe I should dry that to make sure I don't send anything uphill. Let's start with the darks down there. A good go-to dark is ultramarine blue, and one that is still liftable. So this is a very high concentration of pigment. The alizarin or quinacridone, that makes a sort of a dark purplish, royal purple. And then some burnt sienna or raw umber or burnt umber, a brown, to sort of take the, even just a blue and a burnt sienna make a good dark. So it's pretty dark right in here. And let's play with this. Let's make it a little browner at one end. A little redder in other places. A little water there just to let that bleed into the mix. A little bluer maybe. The key here is we want the consistency to be similar, but we want the hue to change. So again, maybe I'll make it a little browner, redder at the front edge. And then as light creeps in underneath from the sidewalk, we'll make it a little bluer. This paint should move, well, whoops, there's some green in there. Let's get that out. It should move more slowly than what we've been using to this point. So, and doggone it, it's a green awning, so let's get some green in there too. It should be reflecting some of its color into the mix. So I want it to look like there's stuff under there, but I don't specifically want to paint stuff because it's too close to the edge of the picture to have anything happen. Alrighty, let's do some windows. Now, same kind of mix, but I'm going to make it a little browner or more the burnt sienna. I might just go to an ultramarine and burnt sienna mix. And I can see right now I'm going to need more ultramarine blue. Pretty dark up under here, so the balcony that cuts across it, or the railing from the balcony that cuts across it, is black, but we're going to lift out some light spots. Again, the reason why we're using these liftable colors. I've got let's make a browner, not quite as dark mix of this stuff over here. And I've got two burnt siennas here. One of them is more orangey, and this one's just more of the regular brown. So I'm going to get into that business here. And a lighter one still with some yellow ochre in it. I'm going to put under here. I might even touch some of that in there. I'm going to work from the top to the bottom and from the left to the right. So back to this mix. Now again, I don't want every window to be the same. So I'm going to maybe throw in a little green, throw in a little red, throw in a little more blue, something like that, just to change it up. I want to get darker there, so let's get some raw umber. Now there is a light spot where the railing goes across this one, but again, it's going to lift nicely. And there's a brownish mix under here, which I believe is the bottom of the whatever that little thing is that sticks out there. I'm going to kind of try and sharpen up this line here. I'm not going to be uber fussy because we want to say Venice funky. Let's get some of that browner mix. And put underneath these thing here. And I'm going to blot that, rinse it, blot it, and I'm going to tease it down a bit. So it looks like it's weathered. Same thing here. Now, as I get down to this one's, let's get some, this is bluish. Put a little viridian in it to get a green. It's very dark right up in there. I'm going to need some purplish. I'm just going to modify this color on the fly as I do it. So can put a little bit of water in that, maybe a little bit of the green, cut some right there. Curtains are not quite as dark. Blot that. A dark blackish, brownish, bluish. So raw umber and ultramarine, slow moving. Or that shutter. Let that edge be soft where it hits here because it bleeds in there and disappears. Later we're going to make that very dark thing through the middle. The space between the curtains. Oh, look at this. weathering. So, yeah, it does get actually kind of dark under here, doesn't it? Coming over to this one. Here I'm going to have to do a sort of a paint around. I'm going to smuggle some green into this mix. I want this one to be a little different. Try to get a broken edge on the top of these so it looks like flowers. And then underneath, maybe a slightly different mix. Okay. Coming over here, let's do a very purplish one. Again, trying to get a broken edge for the floral effect. That's all going to be a boxed planter. And just leave a little bit of white. Let's get some green in there. This one, a blue-brown mix. Burnt umber, ultramarine blue. Tiniest bit of water. Very slow-moving paint. And very shortly, this picture is going to, let's get a little more, well, let's get some green in there, what the heck. As we start adding these little small darks, we're going to start creating the image. Okay, now I need a strong warm dark, so I'm going to get some of the brown. Or maybe the hotter, orangier brown. To get the area in there. I'm going to break that a bit and maybe change its character as I go. So it's not quite so perfect. How's this? It's still a little damp. Let's execute. Let's get a smaller brush. Smaller version of the same thing. Hi, Karen. Just for the fun of it, I'm going to make a rich purple, red-violet purple. Just touch it in here and there. a darker, dirtier green for some of the foliage that's underneath the flowers. And let's mix some blue with that, blue and viridian, and a dark, dark teal. And then I'm going to do what I like to call T plus 20, where I make something that kind of looks like 20 minutes beyond what we're looking at. I want to break up this very straight thing here. I want to pretend you can almost see a little bit of the shadow creeping out onto the awning. I want to suggest that a little more. So just an irregular thing like that. Curlicues of the wrought iron work there. Maybe a couple of thin seam lines on the canvas awning. And then we're going to start getting into the fun stuff. Now, boy, look at, I made those windows short and these ones tall. They are a little shorter, maybe not that short. So I'm going to do a final erase of any pencil marks. This is all pretty much dark now. But before we do our shoe, you know what? I need a little bit of green here. Let's soften that a bit. Just some water. Super, super dark on that. Ultramarine, raw umber, and alizarin. Now, the stripes on that, let's get some dark green, some alizarin, to make that look dark. I want a little more dark under here, corners. Maybe the same thing here. Okay. Our cast shadows. Hi, Lisa. Now, cast shadows. A cast shadow is going to be the color of the surface darker. It's yellow, so a dark yellow is actually something kind of like raw umber. If you've ever seen some like diluted coffee, it has a sort of a yellowish undertone. And just to illustrate this, that raw umber brown, it is a yellowish undertone, so that would be a good component. So that's going to be one of the components we use. I'm going to clean this out. And the other component I'm going to use is Viridian, because there's a lot of bounced back reflected light coming from that awning, bouncing back into these shadows. But just for fun, to show you something, I did a little mock-up of one of our windows. And I have a friend in Fairfield, Tree Neal. She makes espresso watercolor. This is actually coffee espresso that has been reduced. And that's it, nothing else. And it is wets up like watercolor. She paints with it, does amazing things. So let's take our mock-up and let's do like a cast shadow. And you can see that this sort of looks like stuff we're dealing with here, except that there's not any Viridian bouncing back into it. So when you're wondering what does yellow look like in shadow, think about using raw umber or burn umber and some yellow. So fun thing, painting with coffee. And I tell you, it smells great. So I'm going to have to squeeze out more Viridian, aren't I? Gee whiz. Where did I put that? It's a low tinting strength color, and it lifts easily. That's one of the reasons it's good for lifting. So, raw umber, lots of that. Brown with a yellowish undertone. And a little bit of Viridian to put the green cast in it. Now let's do a tester. Okay, kind of olivey. I think we need a little bit more of the Viridian. And a titch more water. So, I think, so I don't smear things, I'm going to work right to left. So we've got a one coming in over here. That was not the way to paint that, by the way. I should have hit the big shape. And it looks a little dark to me. So I'm going to take some of it with a damp brush and get the part that goes down here. So a little more water in the mix. Got a big wobbly line coming across here from some cables. Then I've got a line that comes down at a diagonal like that. Another cable line. A wobbly line with some squiggles in it. This is solid. This is not. Some more of that. Mop up the excess. And then there's some kind of shadow from a cable coming down there. Gonna have to mix up more of this. Hue doesn't have to be perfectly similar, it just needs to be the right value. Okay, well, you can see I need to drink up that excess. The reason it's beating up like that down at the bottom is because I failed to mention that we do have the board on a roughly 45-degree angle there. We've got a shadow under here, under there, along the edge of that window. This is a big shape, but I can isolate it and paint this one and this one separate from that one because I've got the break there. So I'm always looking for those sorts of things. So here we go. Painting over that. And whatever that business is, I think it's railing from above. Then we've got the, look at that shape, I love that shape. And I didn't get it, oh well. Gorgeous shape. Left to right. I've got some upstairs windows that are casting a I'm doing that thing I shouldn't do where I outline it and then fill it in. What I should do is hit the big part of the stroke and then come out when the brush is exhausted and get the rest of it. Now there's also some fold lines in the curtain. There's that one. Left to right, left to right. Railings to come. Let's make sure we got plenty of this. I'm going to do that one. That needs to meet up with that. Then we've got something that looks like that, something that looks like that, and a lot of weird stripy connectors. I'm going to do this business, that wobbly thing, and then I'm going to get the big shape. And this one has to, you can figure out where is that going to be, about here, here. That's one of those Shakespeare strokes. It's "'twere done, 'twere best done quickly." And there's some minor shadow from the, oh, there's a good bit under here. Okay, we're getting there, we're getting there. Now, if you want to make some edges of them softer, such as down here, could bring a damp brush and mop some of that paint. Have to mix more. Up here we've got another triangle wedge shape. Going off the page, and some business like that. This has to be straight. All of that is under there in the shadow. Something off the balcony. And down to about here. And then a little bit under here. Okay, how are we doing? How are we doing? Gonna smuggle a little bit of that in here. Break that up. Oh, look what I did. Water. That's going to wind up being more of the stucco. There's some shadows cast by, it's like a phone box, okay, oh, some more wires coming down here. Alrighty. Now we're going to be making tiny little marks. Perhaps a bit of shadow. Well, I want to create a little more of the variegation in the stucco, so I'm just going to get a little bit of yellow ochre, or maybe a little bit of raw umber and a lot of water. I'm going to do it down here. Not a lot of paint in the brush. I'm going to make the footprint thing. I'm going to try to get some modeling in the stucco. Might even be worth splattering and smearing. We want this to look old and Venetian. Okay. Okay, let's dry that and then go in with our final dark marks and highlights. Okay, so I'm going to get a, like a number 8 or a number 10 thing like that. First, I'm going to make, with this ultramarine burnt sienna mixture, this doesn't move at all. Stays right like that. I'm going to start painting some of the railings here. So I should do this left to right, shouldn't I? Let's make it a little bluer. And there is some wrought iron work in these. This one I like because it has these cool sort of diamond strokes in it. I'm going to mix that with that blue we used earlier. I'm going to try to put some woodwork definition in there. Trying not to make strong, comes the wire, continuous lines. Ultramarine, burnt sienna, slow moving dark. Now this is a dark over light, light over dark situation, meaning where I have light areas that I'm going to put a dark color like this over it. So here come the filigree stuff. Curlicues. So. Now where else can I start? I'm going to get some just burnt sienna or burnt umber, either one will do. I'm going to reinforce, not very strongly, just certain little areas where I want to accent. To make the shadows look somewhat transparent. Again, to get a more weathered effect on the woodwork here. Try to promote that idea. How about some really strong purplish darks to kind of accent the insides of the windows, maybe this area. Sharpen up the edge of the shutter. Okay, now, oh, I know where else I'd like something like that. Right along here. Make it strong. Just to get a little more the suggestion of there being space under there, and it's very dark in some spots. Why do people always call here at this time? There we go with that. Okay, we're almost there. We're almost there. Now, clear water. We're going to do lifts for the, this is what I mean by light over dark. We previously did dark over light. So I'm just lifting that paint, these easy lifting paints. Another way we could have done this is with the Jaune Brilliant right out of the tube. Let's do a couple of vertical. See, the only reason I'm doing this is to try and make some of these windows look a little different from one another. So in order to show the you know what? I see a couple places where I need some cast shadow from the... All right. Oh, I think this is just about it. Maybe that is a super dark. Okay, let's peel it and see what we're starting to get. This was cold pressed Saunders 140 pound, by the way. Okay, I see something straight away. We can make the flowers a little more zingy by getting a bit stronger version of that and variegating the pinks somewhat. And that, I think, sits very lovely against the viridian there. How about we make these stripes on here redder, using alizarin or cad red. Just to get a little bit extra interest out of it. So there we are. Venice. And the idea being using our washes to get as much work done as early on in the painting as we possibly can, getting those big areas established, working as always mostly from the lights to the darks, but using, if we need be, liftable colors so that we can do manipulations such as lifting out a light spot out of the yellow. So the lifting colors are the large pigment particle colors like viridian, ultramarine, siennas and umbers, and yellow ochre. The ones that don't lift, most reds, particularly the crimson reds, the bright yellows, although cad yellow will lift good, phthalo blue, any of those, they won't lift. So there it is. Hope you enjoyed that, and I'll have something fun planned for next week. So everybody stay safe, stay sane, and I'll see you next week.